Danny and Neil had said, lads, listen, you're getting a fitness test next week. Anyone who doesn't finish the run, I'm dropping you straight away. I was thinking, that could be all right. Like, I did it 6 weeks ago. Absolutely gassed, and that was me gassed out the panel too.
No way!
So,
Hello and thank you for watching this episode of How I Got There with Antrim senior player Paddy McAleer, who is currently working in Doha as a primary school teacher. This is to show young people the journey and habits that local sportsmen and women have taken to get to an elite level in sport. Hopefully you or your kids can get some tips from it. Patrick is very humble and will hate me prefacing this interview with this story, but I feel I need to, as it happened in Donegal in August 2020. Paddy and his girlfriend Sinead Donnelly from Ballycastle swam out to save 3 children in distressed waters of Donegal Beach. Sinead and Paddy came to the children's aid after they were pulled out by dangerous riptides. They swam through the treacherous waters and brought them back one by one. This interview took place 1 week after the event, and I would consider myself a close friend of Paddy's. I never mentioned it to any of our group of friends until it came out in the Irish news 2 weeks later. This sums up the type of people and characters Paddy and Sinead are. Sport doesn't build character, it reveals it.
We'll just start off, Paddy. Thanks very much for joining us.
no problem. Thanks for having me, Pete. I think it's a great idea, great initiative. And as you say, if anyone can take anything from these short interviews, that's brilliant for the younger generations of players coming through.
Brilliant, and it's class to have you on, Paddy. The first question we're going to start with, as a younger lad coming through, who's that first player maybe in training or in a match from an opposing team gave you a good roasting and you just realised, holy smoke, I'm at senior level?
I think with the club, we started, there were a couple of sessions, because our numbers weren't always that good. You would have maybe gone up on a Sunday morning and really low numbers for when we were training with under 16s. And I think there was one morning we had poor numbers and the seniors had poor numbers. So 𝐓𝐿𝐿𝐿 had said, right, we'll just join both together and we'll do some small drills and go into an open game, and sure, there shouldn't be that much contact with the numbers we have. And I remember I got the ball at one point and 𝐏𝐚𝐼𝐿, I don't even think he remembers this, but 𝐏𝐚𝐼𝐿 battered the ribs out of me just to get the ball. And he wasn't being dirty or anything. It was just my first experience of coming up against a senior player. And 𝐏𝐚𝐼𝐿 absolutely battered me. I walked home thinking, geez, that's some step up there. I've got coming in a couple of years. But small experiences like that, and going in through, I think the senior reserve teams are really important as well for that. You know, getting a grasp for the physicality of senior, and definitely that year under 16 training with the seniors in small numbers, and then eventually going to senior reserve gave you a really good standing going into senior football. But the flip side of the county side of things, that was years later, and actually it probably wasn't just one of the first sessions, because for the county it probably took me a longer time to get into the team and settled into the team. But I actually remember it's probably the only time that I got really roasted at that level. But oh my lord, it was a toasting. So we played, and it was actually with St Mary's in the McKenna Cup. So we had played Donegal in the McKenna Cup, beat them, really good win. I think I had marked McNeilish in the first half, and he was unbelievable. Movement was unreal, really hard to mark. And then I was thinking, Jesus, it's really hard. I'm getting it tight. And then the second half, Big Murphy walked on into football. Marked him, but it did really well. So did really well. We won the game. Walking off, everyone giving you a pat on the back. Well done, great game. Everyone talking to you in the college through the week. But we had a game, so that was on the Sunday, and we had a game on the Wednesday. And I don't know if my head was up my whatever, but I walked out onto the pitch in Park Esler, and I was lining up against a boy, Arthur McConville from Clonduff, I think it is. And I swear to God, Pete, he toasted me that night. He must have walked off with 9 points in the McKenna Cup game. Absolutely, couldn't get near him. So there was me going from the Sunday thinking, you know, this is brilliant. You know, Sigerson's 2 weeks away. We've got DIT, then maybe a run in against Jordanstown to get into the weekend. And then the Wednesday night came and I was going home on the bus thinking, oh my God, I just went from number 3 to 33. But they're great experiences whenever they're not great at the time, but they're great learning experiences. Asking yourself, did you reflect on the game properly? Were you going into the game properly? But I'll never ever forget that night in Uri.
So we'll talk about your primary school and secondary school career, and what type of training you did, what type of sports you played, things like that there. So just growing up, who was your sort of idols or inspiration growing up, whether it be on the TV or locally or in your family?
Whenever I was growing up younger, in primary school, we actually had a lot of soccer more than the Gaelic. 𝐓𝐿𝐿 was a big Tyrone man, but we didn't actually focus as much on the kind of mini leagues of the Gaelic. We wouldn't have had that as much. We would have had Jerry Sexton coming into the school and promoting the soccer, which was really good. So I was really into soccer. Still played the Gaelic through the primary school years, but was massive into the soccer. So I was a big Liverpool fan, so I was massively into like Michael Owen, Steven Gerrard. Loved watching them. Loved watching as much soccer as I could. But then my dad's a big golfer, so I was big into my golf at that age. So I loved watching like Tiger Woods. I love watching top end, athletes, elite athletes performing. But I found that at Gaelic, it wasn't until I left probably primary school to go into secondary school that I really got a hunger to get myself improved and to study it a bit more. And that's when I started watching teams like Tyrone and the great good teams in Armagh and teams like that. And you were looking at Sean Cavan and thinking, this man's an animal. How do you get like that? And I always remember Paul McFlynn was great influence on me in St. Louis. He said to me it must have been just before he left, so our final year was his final year in the school, and someone made a joke about me in football, and he turned around and said, I remember Paddy McAleer down in the sports hall. He's the first man togged out ready for training in first year. And I said I might have been the first man togged out, but I never played a minute under you. And he said but you were eager, you loved it. And he said a big part of your game was developing physically. So I really get into some gym work and improve my skills at the same time. But he said that was massive. From about third year to sixth year, I shot way up in height, and then it was trying to get a bit of weight on me to cope at a higher level. But I just remember him saying how important that development was through those years to affect my game. So
awesome.
Just shows you, I was one of the smallest in first and second year. Just shows you, you don't know how your body's going to develop. You just need to stick at it. And if you've got a passion, or if you really love doing something, stick at it. Even if you're not, competing at the top yet, during those younger years, later on in your career, you might be able to compete at that top level. So just to stick at it.
There's always the one player that who's the best player, most underrated player Like, we all know that player that just, like, nobody really knows them, but you're like, that's a quality player there. So is there someone there that stands out in your mind?
Probably the one that pushed me the whole way through the career would probably be Phelim. Phelim was my cousin, is my cousin, but what was the person who really pushed me from like under 12 when we were just kind of going to training to enjoy it, and we weren't maybe the main players in the team. He was always pushing me to be better, and he would have marked me and got the better of me, and then I would have wanted to get the better of him the next day. So yeah, Phelim Killick probably the one that worked me the whole way through, and we were playing like under sixes all the way through to senior level. So it was great to have that journey with him, and he always pushed me on, always.
Would you be a fan of, nowadays, we hear the 10,000 hour book, focus on one thing, just become amazing at that? Or what was your advice to parents about kids in primary school? Like, how often should they be training?
Yeah, well, like, then I went to become a PE primary teacher. So that's kind of something that I've studied in. And to any parent, I would say, get your child playing as many sports, or, taking part in as many disciplines as you can. The skills that they'll come across, the movement patterns, it's invaluable at that young age to be doing as much as you possibly can without, do too much. I think there is there's a culture out there that's all about winning. So if you're training 7 days a week at one discipline, you'll become a champion at that, and that's brilliant. And you're not really looking at the holistic development, where you might be missing out on their amazing swimming skills they might have had, and then they just completely lose them because they're not in the pool for a year, or vice versa. It could be for football, could be soccer, could be golf, could be any. And that's what I was really grateful for my family. And it's not just mum and dad, because the older ones would have been my taxi service as well. They would have been taking you to football, taking you to soccer the next night, then swimming club, then dad would have went out for a game of golf with you. And that must have been heartbreaking for him, because getting around Gilgorm whenever I was younger, it must have taken me 8 hours, and it's meant to be, and that was only 9 holes. But he got you playing as many sports, and my family would have taken part in different sports too. But that didn't mean they pushed me into one certain sport. They let me have a bit of freedom with it and go with what I loved. And soccer was probably the one that I started with, and obviously Gaelic was one that I got a real hunger for.
But here, you went to St. Louis Grammar School, known to bring out some amazing athletes, some amazing players. So, senior year group, who all would have been playing around your year group? Did you do, how much extra work would you have done outside of training, and what would you suggest younger boys do today?
Yeah, we actually, so we had a really, really good team. We were really strong in soccer and football, going through St. Louis. We had played, now I hate throwing names out, and I always miss people, but just off the top of my head, we had Dermot McAleer, Nad Larraghy, Dermot McWilliams, Joe Scullion, Peter Duffin, so many. And then we had hurlers like Dan McCluskey, who plays for 𝐷𝐿, who's playing football as well, and soccer, and he's really talented.
An All-Ireland medal, doesn't he?
Who?
Is he an All-Ireland medal with the 𝐷𝐷𝐿?
Yeah. So 6th year, maybe lower 6th, he won an All-Ireland with 𝐷𝐷𝐿, and in first year he was playing in I think they got to the Northern Ireland Cup final. So like that's the importance of playing so many different disciplines. It really helps your game in other sports. But we had such and then boys from the town like James Timoney was fullback throughout our teams. I think we had such strong teams the whole way through in soccer and football. And I think actually first year I didn't make this. So I was really into soccer. Didn't make the soccer panel first year. Didn't make the Gaelic team starting 15 or something. I was really disappointed. And then the next year we had a really good run in the Ulster B, got to the final. We were beating the final. Third year, our Gaelic team won the 𝐷𝐷𝐄𝐿, so we won the B, and that's probably a time when boys were really starting to really kick on in their football and their soccer. 4th and 5th year, our team played A colleges, so you're coming up against St. Pat's, Maharai, Magherafelt. There's another team we used to always come up, St. Pat's Armagh, I think. So really strong footballers all across Ulster. So it was great where you're a Ballymena man and you're coming up against players from Sean Stinson's, even Corray, really strong clubs around you. But then to take that and then to go across teams in Ulster and playing at the top grade. And I was lucky enough I got into some of the teams in 4th and 5th year. Playing at that high standard was really important, I think, for development. So I think what I took away from, especially 1st to 5th year, was that the people who stuck at it got the rewards out of it, and you could see that those boys were coming back every year stronger and stronger, not just physically but in their skills. The Dermot McAleer was a top class player. He actually got an all-star in 6th year, our final year. And he was just class. He had everything. But the most important skill I think he had was his solo. He could solo in and out of 3 or 4 boys, no bother, and come out with it in one hand. It was just so easy to him. But you could tell it wasn't by chance. He was going home and he was obviously working on that skill, and he was so strong too. I think his dad was a butcher. He had a good supply coming into him.
So just finishing up on your high school career. I want this to be really specific so that young players can literally go, this is what Paddy McAleer did.
I think at my last year of school, so still at St. Louis, I think my last year of school I was playing with the county minor team, the McLaren team, and probably there was some senior club put in there, and then the minor club. So you're playing for four teams there, and I was quite lucky. I didn't have hurling or soccer. I completely dropped the soccer, so I was lucky. I had maybe a spare night through the week, but I think each day you're just taking it as it came. Like you're making sure you're getting the right food into you, a balanced diet. But the training was it was heavy because, as you say, for McLaren, sometimes we were going in doing a core session or a recovery session if we had a heavy pitch session the day before. Then you might be, so from that morning you're going through school, coming home. I used to come home and I used to say to Paddy Logan, geez, I'm wrecked during the day. And Paddy Logan used to say, take an hour nap. I used to take them all the time, snooze away, and then get up, have your dinner and go to training. So I used to do that all the time. Used to lounge out in the living room there. But so then you would have been going home, a nap, food in me, out getting a lift to training. And if you were training with the county that night, it could have been a Hawkwell, could have been somewhere in Belfast. Then coming home shattered. That's in case you didn't have any.
Eat much when you're at home? Like, would you been, what type of food were you eating back then? Or if you could look back, would you have changed your diet? Even as a kid.
I think it was balanced, and that it was coming from my mum and dad. It was just what they were having, what they were cooking. We'd always have, a meat or fish, and we always got our vegetables, our your carbs, and it was just, you talk about the eat well plate in school. That's the kind of diet we had. Always had tea and chocolate for before I went out the door as well. But I think people get over, and I think I've been subject to this where I look too much into my diet and think I'm trying to micromanage it. Whereas in the whole it might be balanced, and you're skipping out on other things like sleep. So sleep was a massive thing for me as well. I was making sure I got 8 to 9 hours every night through school, and that was with an hour nap as well earlier on in the day. But the things like sleep, a balanced diet were two of the key things that I was looking at. I don't think I looked as much at kind of mobility stuff at that age, and I was lucky enough I didn't pick up too many injuries through kind of 18, 19. But it was just trying to keep things ticking over, Pete, to the next session. I think people talk about burnout at that age, and I think it's just overtraining, not burnout. So if you manage yourself properly, you'll not burn out. And it's probably having the courage, and that's what any young people there, probably having the courage to say to a manager, I can't train tonight. And then people start to think, if I don't train tonight, I'm maybe putting myself out of the team. But if you think about it, if you're going on and on, training on and on, and your body's not coping with it, you're more than likely to pick up an injury, and that's going to put you out for 3 or 4 weeks where you're definitely not going to be in the team. Whereas if you take one night off, take the hit, talk to a sensible manager, the next week you're coming back fresher and you're competing at a higher level. So I think it's hard. It is hard, and it's a lot of the responsibility has to go on to the management and the coaching staff, that they have to be able to say, yeah, he is doing too much, and then being able to work with other teams. I think so we were working with McFlynn in the school. Kevin McCarry maybe, or 𝐓𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 would have been the manager of the senior club. Frankie Fitz and Frankie Fitz and Danny O'Neill were taking the county minor, and then in the minor team I think we maybe had Sean O'Brien. So we had ones that knew each other nearly. I had ones that knew each other, so they were actually good at managing you through things. And I remember at the start of the year with county minor, Danny O'Neill and Frankie Fitzsimmons had said to me, here, take a rest. And they knew that we had been through an Ulster run, and they said, don't bother coming back to the trials, anything like that there. We'll call you for the gym programme. then you can take a few weeks off, get yourself right, and then come back fresh after your McLaren season or after it starts. So they were realistic about things, and that's important, having a good contact with your good communication with your managers, and being open and honest, and not pushing things until it's too late. I think that's a massive thing.
Brilliant, Paddy. So 2 things for the young ones there out there, you know, high communication on there. So you kicked on there and went to St Mary's. You know, what was that experience like going there? You must have, like, you know, because you're really starting to kick on. You know, you just won an intermediate championship just straight out of. What age were you on your intermediate championship? Were you 7? Lower 6th or upper 6th?
I was 17. That was lower 6th, and then 18 was second year of minor, and then going to uni was the first year under 21. St Mary's, as you say, Pete, St Mary's was unbelievable, and I probably took it for granted in the first year or two, how great a place it was, and how much they look after you there. Like the PE lectures, you see so much of them, like Kieran Walsh, Elaine Rice, and then of course Paddy Talley, who has you for football too. Our freshers team actually was managed by Kerry O'Neill and Sean Kelly from St Gauls. They took our freshers team, and they were unreal. Tactically, they were class. But I remember I got an injury during the club under 21. I think Big Smiley from Moneyglass fell on my ankle. So I don't think the ligaments have recovered yet from that. So that put me out for a while for the freshers, but it was back for the championship. And Pete, I remember you put up a post about uni and the struggles of uni and what you can go through. Now, I didn't have struggles now, and I'm very lucky to be one of those people who didn't have struggles, or always had like family members, 4 older ones to throw you a bit of money, or your mum and dad were giving you money for rent and all the rest.
You learn from them.
But you still find yourself in types of ruts, you know, where you're maybe going out on the night out, and the next day you're not going to uni. You may be saying like, "Oh, it's a class, like I can miss out on that." And it actually came back to bite me, because I remember I think it was second year, and I still hadn't kind of pulled the finger out, and I was not going mad or anything, but just going nights out and skipping classes. And I used to always miss this music class, and I actually liked the lecturer, Orla Nugent, and she came back to me. She actually came out for my visit for teaching practice, and she goes, "Yeah, it was a good lesson, but you know, he could have included more music, but sure, he maybe isn't because he's not one of my lectures." So the teacher that had me, she was like, "You're an idiot, why are you not going to those music lectures?" I said, "I'll start going." Or music classes, I said, "I'll start going." So years later, I'm on a first date with Sinead, and she's saying, you know, "Oh, you went to St Mary's, did you?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, my aunt's a lecturer there." I said, "Oh, really? Who is it?" And she turned around, "Orla Nugent." Oh. So the girl I didn't go to her classes, I was starting going out with her niece. So it was a good start. But no, it's funny how things like that end up. But I just think you can get so much more out of uni than you realise at the time. And looking back, I think the experiences I had were amazing. But you still, those first couple of years where you're trying to find your feet, sometimes it just takes, you know, maybe a couple of days to reflect on, you know, what do you want out of uni? You know, are you definitely wanting to be a teacher? I think people go through the college sometimes and don't want to be a teacher at all. And I've seen people pull out in third year, a year before they're fully qualified. So I think it's having a clear vision, and again, it's being big enough to say at 18, maybe uni isn't for me for this year, but it might be next year. So it's having a clear vision, and then getting on with it and committing to it. I think that's a massive thing, and the more I committed to uni, the more I got out of it. And it probably came full circle in fourth year when I started playing on the St Mary's team, and I was lucky enough to start in that team, play Sigerson matches, which was unreal, competing at the top level. But then after uni, I thought to myself, like, there were 2 years, because first year's freshers, there's 2 years kind of wasted. And even if I didn't play, even if I didn't get on, at least I could have been part of it and had more experiences like that. And we talk about championship runs and playing at the top level. It's not always just about that too. It's the nights out after it. It's the bonding sessions. You're going away to the sand dunes like the club do all the time. It's things like that you remember. And it's definitely the same with uni. I think the more you commit to uni, the more you get out of it. But at the same time, it's having a clear vision. But I'm really glad I kind of pulled the finger out in second, third year, and was able to get so much more out of St Mary's. And as you say, it's such a special place, and people give me abuse at times saying, oh, the ranch this and the ranch that, but whenever you're there, you realise how good it is, and you believe the hype.
How did you see universal young lad, young girl or young lad, big into their sport, transitioning over from secondary school, got into first year of university, the partying, the drinking, all that there, it's brilliant, right? But it's the pressure of it. Like you feel you have to go out every night, and then you look at your bank account, you've got like minus 50 quid in it. You're like, what? Like, I can't go out. And it seems like everybody's got loads of money. Everyone's going out having a great time. And you're trying to do this, reach your goal in terms of a Gaelic footballer. What advice would you give to a young person whenever, what advice would you give to them to avoid, to stay on that track? Now, looking back, just say no to the odd night out, or don't worry if you're not going out. Or...
It's probably looking at what you want, and as I say, like, it's planning it out, like what's your short-term goals, what's your long-term goals, and some people might realise Gaelic's not my priority anymore. My career is going to be my priority, but you still have to, you have to put things in place to make that happen. So I think, reflecting on things, looking at things and planning them out. I think that's one thing I was terrible at, planning things out, planning your month ahead, whatever, a couple of weeks ahead. Even having a plan in your head, what are you doing tomorrow, can set you up so much better than just saying, I'll go with the flow. Sometimes you need a structure, you need to be organised to get on with things. So I think having a short-term and long-term goal in regards to sports, where do you want to be in a week's time, 2 weeks' time, 6 weeks' time, in regards to your physical shape? Are you looking to put weight on? Are you looking to cut weight? Are you looking to hit a certain time and a distance run? So,
sorry to interrupt you, Paddy. Not to interrupt you, but
yeah.
Do you physically write that down on paper, or do you write it on a laptop, or do you have apps or anything, for goal setting, or planning around your athletics?
So I have just a small book. I would write reflections on games. So I would note them down, and then have a separate book for any of the gym stuff, or the run stuff, or the skills stuff that I focus on. So if I go up the pitch and I kick, I'm kicking points and recording them, like 2 out of 15 went over. So just things like that, noting them, because I think the important thing there is you can see progression, written progression, and it's great. And I was talking to someone about it a couple of weeks ago. It's brilliant being able to look at games at the start of the wee notes I have, where you're maybe not performing, or you're saying that you only played 10 minutes or you only played 15 minutes, and then you look at the progression and how much better you're getting.
Oh, yes.
Maybe looking at certain teams as well. So you're able to look back at that team, that club team. I didn't perform well that day. What was it missing? And sometimes it completely changes because the position you're playing, or the team, how they set up, and all the rest. But I think a lot of the time you find that if you're able to reflect on a game, and then after the next game, you can see progressions, you can see development, and you can see improvement. So I think it's really, really a really useful tool, just even pen and paper. I know people get really sophisticated with things, but I just have a pen and paper and note down my reflections or my records from my training and my matches.
That's magic. And you would say, how, is it, and I'm going maybe a wee bit too specific here, but is it you're saying put 5 bullet points down what you did well, what you did, 5 bullet points down what you did bad, or is it something else? Yeah, is it long form paragraphs? Or
I'd probably rather put more positives than negatives. So and people might say to me, but I had a stinker, like I was rubbish. How can even turning up to the game, even getting on, even playing, completing the match, look for the positives in things, and it makes you feel a lot better about it. Whereas if you focus on just one negative or one thing that you can critique, you can improve, it gives you an end goal. So, but by the time I play them next time, I don't want that to be a negative. That has to be one of my positives. So I would just look at two positives and a negative, and just take it from there. I don't think you have to go into massive analysis. I think there's coaches and managers that'll do plenty of that for you. So I think from a personal aspect or an individual, just focusing on short points to improve.
Magic, Paddy, magic. So let's in terms of I'm just going to move on here to show you a few pictures of your development. Put you on the spot here. So I think this
I'm scared of what you're going to pull up here.
Don't worry. I couldn't get a hold of your Bebo. You were lucky. So I'm still working these here. There we go. There it is here. Okay, so this is Paddy. I just want to show you photos and just want to talk about them. When was it? This is you playing for. That's you and your big mate Mark Sweeney, I think.
Yeah, that's Sweeney. That was actually, I think that was my first year, and that's in Clonus in the McKenna Cup. But we actually played Tyrone that day. I can't remember why we had to go to. It was maybe the snow or something.
Yeah.
We had to change venue, and Sweeney was. Sweeney just wasn't as good as me, and that's why he's coming on. He went, no, I think Sweeney was commuting from Dublin there, and he gave me a few minutes, and then he took over. Sweeney's a top man there. You talk about mentality and wanting to compete at the top level. I think he's one of the best role models I ever had at Antrim, just to strive to be as the best you can be.
Your goal was play for Antrim. See, that first time, there's going to be young lads out there who watch this, want to play for Antrim and be playing beside you someday. Like, what was it like going out and playing for Antrim for the first time? Were you nervous?
Yeah, I actually think that my first game for Antrim was in the McKenna Cup against St Mary's. So I was in the college at the time, and I think I was third year. And 2 weeks before that, we had under 21 trials or under 21 training, and Frankie Fitz, Russ, he had called me up, but he had actually called me up after the under 21, and it was like on a Wednesday night or something. And I was coming out the bus or onto the bus after a St Mary's B game. Mm-hmm. So I was actually playing for the Ranches B squad down in Cork or somewhere like that, in a league game. So I was coming out onto this bus, and I get a phone call. I was thinking, just after playing a B game for the college, and I've been called up to the Antrim team. So I was thinking, how does that measure up? And I was absolutely delighted, because that, as you say, like from maybe 12 on, that was the main goal. Just make sure I can compete at county level the whole way up, and eventually become a senior player. So no, I loved every minute of it, Pete.
Who was in the dressing room? That first year, like, what was the dressing room like? Was it big?
It was good. It was good. There were players like Sweeney, who I looked up to as a real leader, and he always had a great example. But I always remember, we talk about leaders now. 𝐷𝐸 Lynch is a bit of an idiot, like, whenever you're talking to him, and he's a good lad and all the rest. But I remember one time Mick McGurn was taking us that first year, and Mick McGurn was relentless, like, in his training. So he's a big gym man, like, he's unreal for development that way. But he took us for some pitch sessions and running, and he would have been so strict, and discipline was massive for him. And he said, if anyone doesn't run around those cones properly, we're doing another set. And we were all busted. And I don't know who it was, ran around the cone, but clipped the cone and kicked it away. And we were thinking, oh my days, we're getting another tune here. And 𝐷𝐸 Lynch ran back, got the cone, put it back, and then we all finished our set. And we were like, hands on the knees and all the rest, and we were panting. We were thinking, here we go again. And he said, I'll not make you do another set. There's a sign of, stepping up to the plate and, mucking in. Dickie Lynch went back, solved the problem, fixed it. There's good enough for me. So I just thought the wee moments throughout that year there where you're picking up small things and on behaviours and disciplines and things like that, where I think it stands you in good stead later on in the years. But I remember, that's the one thing I remember. McAleer, some of his training was unreal. Just things in the gym I'd never been doing, and it got addictive as well. Like, you're mixing the gym side with the football side. I really enjoyed it. It was really, really good.
And so, if you're giving advice to a young lad coming in, or girl, sorry, coming into a senior setup, from underage to senior setup at a county level or any high level in sport, when you go to County Gaelic, you don't know everybody in the change room at all. Like, so you're intimidated. What advice would you give me? Is it just get the head down, say nothing in the change room, just get on with it, and eventually in 3-4 months you'll be best mates with all these lads? Or how would you approach? What advice, steps would you give them if they're nervous going into a setup like that?
Just be open-minded about it. Like, I think some people get their nose out of joint whenever, if they're used to playing 15 for the club, corner forward, and then they're putting the half back, or they're putting the corner back, or they're putting the full back. Some people say, well, I'm not, that's not my position for the club. I'm unbelievable in corner forward, or I'm unbelievable in half forward. It's being open-minded, and every time you get to play, every time you get to train, you're getting better. So be open-minded. Don't take it as something personal, like a personal attack on you. You still have a chance to get better. In regards to the social side of things, they're just boys from down the road. Like, some of my best mates in the team, like Paddy, 𝐓𝐇𝐄𝐑𝐄, boys like that, are boys just from Belfast. Like, it's not as though they're celebrities. They might think they're celebrities, but they're boys I went to college with, and that was the easy transition. Like, I went in with 𝐓𝐇𝐄𝐑𝐄 through minor, and then
driving each other forward.
Hey?
Driving each other forward.
Yeah. It's good whenever someone in your age group goes through it with you. And then I knew Paddy from college. But then there were boys like Marty and Ricky Johnson. I used to remember those two boys walking around the Elk, with the earrings in from Ricky and the pink polo top and all. Yeah. I used to be intimidated. I remember whenever I was like first year of under 16 and they were minor, they were superstars, and I thought, geez, they're unreal. Big massive men, like really intimidating. And then you got up to the county and you were talking to them, two of the nicest fellas you ever meet, absolute gentlemen. So like, I think sometimes you have perceptions from club games, or stories that go around, and you think, geez, I couldn't talk to that boy, he's not approachable. It's you build it up in your head, and then whenever you're up there, it's nowhere near as bad. So just be open-minded and make the most out of it, because like for the likes of me, like I only had 4 years at it there. Absolutely loved it. I'd love to be back at it, but I can look back and say, I did make the most of it while I was there. I think boys that go into their shell and don't embrace it, those are the boys who get the least out of it. And you don't see them down the line, or they don't last the full year. I think just embrace the experience and get as much as you can.
Brilliant. And see, we're talking there about roles. Some boys, some younger people in sport, they'll be going from being a superstar underage level to a senior club team or a senior county team, but they're not playing centre half forward, or they're not playing midfield and starring. They're put in a different role. Maybe they're putting a right half forward, maybe putting corner forward, maybe putting corner back. Like, and especially with systems these days as well, how do you reach your potential within a role that's limited creatively, if you know what I mean, Paddy? So, how do you?
Very simple answer, because I'm a limited footballer. But one of the best things. Oh, am I getting a phone call there?
Must be
Sean O'Brien ringing me there to tell me how many wides he kicked last night. No, not making fun of the question, but it's true. Football, it's a very simple game if you play it in a simple way. So any role that I was ever put into that I wasn't familiar with, I just did what I knew I was good at. So, you know, I knew I was never the boy who's going to kick 40-yard frees, who was going to be a marquee forward, that kind of role. But I knew I could practice my solo, I could practice my kick passing, I could practice, you know, my fist passing. I could be working on my fielding. You know, the nights me and you used to do our jumping program out the back garden of yours. But just things like that. They're working on the basics of the game so that you can fit into any place. And you know, if your nose is out of joint, well, how can you embrace it? You know, how can you make the most out of the situation you're in? If you're a corner forward and you've been put into corner back, well, you know how a corner forward plays. You know, if you've got that knowledge, well, then use that. You know, and think of his movement patterns and all the rest. And I think you have to be adaptable in today's game. I think especially the way football's played, you know, positions can become similar, and it's just embracing it. It's trying to, you know, use the skills you have to the best of your ability in the role that you're in. And, you know, especially at a county level, I don't think you're able to be a person who can say, no, I'm not playing that role, or here, I'm not giving it everything today, because, you know, you have to have a bit of pride in the jersey too, you know. That's one thing. I don't care if I was playing 2, 5, 8, 10, whatever. I was just happy to get the jersey and to make the most out of it. And again, going back to it, just always trying to be competitive, because I knew if I was competitive in cornerback or competitive in halfback, competitive in midfield, I was going to be better for it in the coming weeks. And it was giving me a better chance of starting in the team, giving me a better chance to have an impact in the team and to stay there. So I think that the people who aren't competitive, or who think they should be in a different position, or they linger on the thought of, I'm not where I should be, you know, you're only taking backward steps where you could be moving forward.
Brilliant. So rejection happens to everybody. Happened to the greats. Michael Jordan, you know, he was rejected from his first year basketball team. Has that ever happened to you? And how did you rebound from it? How did you use that experience?
Loads of rejections, Pete. Loads.
You don't have to talk about the by the way.
I think the first, like, as I say, school teams. It happened to me in school teams where, and the year we won the 𝐏𝐚𝐿𝐴, the Ulster B in third year, I think it was. Didn't start that year. Other times in the school, in the soccer, wasn't picked for the panel or didn't start. And then the likes of first year minor was in the training panel and then dropped. I think I had a broken wrist at that time, and I came back and I hadn't ran one bit since I had a broken wrist. That was my excuse for not running. And Danny and Neil had said, lads, listen, yous are getting a fitness test next week. Anyone who doesn't finish the run, I'm dropping you straight away. I was thinking, I'll be all right. Like, I did it 6 weeks ago before the injury. I'll be all right. Absolutely gassed, and that was me gassed out the panel too.
No way.
So it was my own fault. Like, I didn't do anything to help myself. And then I think some injuries maybe prevented me getting on the next year under 21 team. My first year under 21, I actually played in the league, and then I think it was dropped for the championship panel. But every time I got dropped, I didn't see it just as, geez, that's the journey over. I thought, like, well, I've always next year. You've always a team to look forward to in the next year. And that's what I would say to young people, you know, look at where you are now and look at how long your career is. Look at your longevity. Like, you're going to be playing for the next 10 years. There's 10 more teams to make, you know, and just because you've been cut halfway into a season, well, you've got the rest of this half season to improve yourself to get on to next year's team. So yeah, I've loads of experience of being dropped or not making panels, and even you talk about rejection or you know, setbacks. Even when times I've been whipped off at half time, or you know, just before half time in games at a high level, you know, you just take it. You know, you have to reflect on it and make sure they don't happen as a regular occurrence. Reflecting on it, it's having you know, an idea of the bigger picture, and again, looking at those short-term goals, long-term goals. We'll just make sure it doesn't happen next year, or you know, look at the positive sides. I am going to get on that team next year. and I'm going to do everything in the short term to make sure that happens.
Magic, Paddy. Like, there you are, folks. So young people out there, Paddy didn't make some school teams, got rejected or got cut from a minor panel, and then he went on. Maybe 6-7 years later, you were starting midfield for Antrim in the championship against Down.
Yeah.
It's great inspiration there, Paddy. So what type of sacrifices do you think it takes to get to be a county footballer? In terms
it's probably
of...
it's probably just prioritising things in your life. Like, do you want to play at the top level, or do you want to go out with your friends 3 or 4 nights a week instead? It's getting your priorities, and if you want to play at the top, you have to train enough. If you're looking at boys around you, you have to be asking yourself, well, am I doing as much as he's doing? And if you're looking at someone playing in your position, you have to be saying, well, am I doing as much as them? And if it's yes, well, am I doing more to get an edge on them? So I think it's definitely prioritising things in your life, but also getting a balance. I think it's really important to get a balance in your life where, if you're just too, tunnel vision on this one thing, you may be missing out on other things, and then that's going to play on you later on in the year. If you're missing out on family events or missing out on things, they're good for you too. Like, you need an outlet, and I think it's massive things, just balancing your life, but getting the priorities right too.
We'll jump into a few players you played with, Paddy. Who's the best players you've played? Best 3 players, doesn't have to be in the order. Best 3 players you played with, and best 3 players you played against.
I'm probably going to ruin this interview. I hate doing those questions. So, like, I'm not retired yet, and I think that those are questions for people who are a bit further on their career, for like Sean McVeigh or something, Peter McNichol. I'm joking. But no, I don't like answering those, because I think you always miss out boys or boys that you've played for a lot of years with, and maybe it shows a bit of disrespect to them whenever you're still playing with them. So I don't really like just singling out 2 or 3 players that you played with, because I played with so many good players throughout my career so far, and I probably will play with more and against. Hopefully I'll play against so many more top level athletes. So I don't think I'm at the stage to list them yet. So hopefully I've got a really good list of 3 for both of those categories in a few years to come.
Who are some of the hardest working players you played?
I think like the county had loads of good training, like training at the top level. They really put the hard yards in, and I think Antrim get disrespected sometimes, and thinking that their Division 4 team, they don't work as hard. Like, looking at Sweeney, Peter Healy, Christian Healy, they commuted from Dublin up to Belfast for trainings like that. That's hard work too. Coming out of your job and going up the road to train at a high level, and those 3 boys always did. I had a lot of respect for that there. Within the squad, like, people always different nights set the tempo and maybe called things out. I think great leaders in the squad were always the likes of like 𝐏𝐚𝐝. 𝐏𝐚𝐝 always talked sense. A lot of people like to talk, but when 𝐏𝐚𝐝 was speaking, it was something you could listen to and take away from. So there's loads, Pete. There's loads from the county side of things. From club again, there's loads. It's probably like your generation of players, like you, Snowy, Kel, Gooch, Shimmy McAfee, boys like that, Paddy Logan, just set tempos, set standards in training that you could follow, and probably use are in my head, because these are the boys whenever I first came into the team, these were setting the standard. But then I look at the team now, and there's young boys like Cavan and Connell and Jim Bob and Benny, and boys like loads of different ones that set the tempo and set the standard of training. So it's good to see that mix now, of younger boys being able to step up. And I don't know if I was the hardest worker in training ever, but I definitely was waiting nearly, and that's probably one thing, I was always waiting on someone to set the tempo or standard of a training before I get started. So no, loads that I'm probably going to miss out on listening, Pete.
We were kind of lucky. Well, I'm a bit older than you, but we didn't really have crazy amounts of social media through our high school days. What advice would you give the people in terms of social media?
Yeah, like social media can be brilliant. Like you look at the 𝐓𝐇𝐄𝐑𝐄. 𝐓𝐇𝐄𝐡 is unreal. Thing to click on to see match reports and read up on how other teams are doing, and creates memories for boys. Like taking pictures of their playing days. It's brilliant, and that's a real positive side to the social media kind of things. And the same with Facebook and Instagram, all those things. Twitter, well, not Twitter. Twitter's maybe a thing where people go on to vent a bit more, but like those things create memories, and it's great for like a timeline of things. But there's definitely a dark side to it, like as well, where people can say what they want, and sometimes they can be relentless in it. But I would just say, like, you know, people who are growing up now, just to realize, like, it's not reality. What you're seeing on someone else's Instagram page or Facebook page or whatever it is, you know, that's not their full life. You know, it's maybe the highlights of it, but you don't see their. So if that's a highlight, you don't see their lows. So don't be thinking that it's all, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side. But it's not always fulfilling. So people try and put so much into their Instagram, so much into their Facebook, and they wonder why they maybe are still in a rut, or they don't feel as good about themselves. It's not fulfilling. Like, there's so many other things you can do in your life that are going to be fulfilling than sitting on your phone all day or sitting on a laptop all day. You know, go out, have a conversation with someone rather than just trying to talk to them over Instagram or WhatsApp or whatever. You know, you have to have that outlet, as I say. Like, social media has its pros, but it definitely has its cons, where you have to realize, you know, take a step back from it. It's not the be all end all. And at the end of the day, like, if you're taking so much from one person's opinion, look at the people around you. Who do you want to be listening to? You know, surround yourself with good people. And if people outside that are giving you abuse or giving you stink, you know, who do you really care about? Like, who do you know, the opinions of who matter, the people that are closest to you.
Magic. So when it comes to sport, what advice would you go back and give, like, an 18-year-old Paddy McAleer?
Yeah, probably just like there's so much whenever you look back in your career, and like I'm only 26 and I'm looking back to when I was an 18-year-old. There's loads of things you go through and loads of things you learn from. But the biggest thing I've taken away from my experience is to always ask why you're doing something, or you know, to always ask why you're not starting, why you're not in that position, or why you haven't made that team. Or, you know, when you're constantly asking why, you're constantly trying to improve and develop. And even you know, looking at the positive side of things, if you had a good game, why did you have a good game? What did you do? You're talking about the diet, you know. Why did I have a good game? Well, I had this here so many hours before the game. I'll try that again, see if that still works. And, you know, I think if you're asking the why, you're always getting better. You're always trying to develop more.
Magic, Paddy. If there's one other person you think that really inspired you, that you know to learn more about, and you suggest to come on to get interviewed, who would it be?
Well, I would say like my family were the biggest influence on me. But from a point of view and looking at the path you're talking about, an 18-year-old and to now, I'd probably say in my football, 𝐏𝐚𝐝 would be a massive person in my life, who helped me. You know, and me and Sean weren't overly friendly at the start of it, and we hardly knew each other. But he really took me under his wing whenever I was first called up into the county panel, and we're good friends now. So he's been a great influence in my career. So he might be hard to get hold of through the MMA career he's going through at the minute.
Yeah, I know. That's smart.
So, but no, definitely.
Just before we finish, like that, from looking in as a teammate, I just seen your growth. Like, you were traveling up with Sean to county train all the time, and I just seen just the habits just got up with his, and it was just class to see. So, now, Paddy, thanks a million for your time, big man.
Thanks very much, Pete. All the best.
I don't know how to turn this off. Right.
Thanks for watching, folks. Hope you enjoyed that there with Paddy. I've created a product called Fetch Tag. If your pet goes missing and someone finds it, all they have to do is tap on the tag, and they'll be able to either call you or find directions to bring your pet back to your home. And if you use the coupon code Paddy, you'll get £5 off, and it's only costing you a tenner. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Take care in these tough times. Bye bye.